Hi, I'm Tessa, a veteran educator working in the field of special education.
And I'm Kim, mom of 2 autistic boys and a late diagnosed autistic person myself.
And welcome to Totally Over the Spectrum, where we dive into embracing autism through understanding and support. Welcome to episode 52. And thank you to all of our listeners who've reached out, and we really appreciate your comments and feedback, and please keep it coming. Perfectionism. Kimberly, this is all you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I think most people have an understanding of what perfectionism is. But I'd like to start with a definition anyway, just to avoid any miscommunication.
Okay, go for it.
All right. So we're talking about perfectionism as a personality style, and it is not considered to be any kind of disorder. But the Canadian Psychological Association describes it as a maladaptive pattern of behaviors involving inappropriate levels of expectations and intangible goals, and a constant lack of satisfaction, irrespective of performance. So first of all, I disagree. I disagree.
Okay, I have a lot less description of it. Like, I mean, I have a more realistic description of it. That was so not nice, that description.
Right?
I didn't like that.
No, I feel totally called out. So I disagree that perfection is intangible or impossible. I disagree. Of course it is. You can achieve perfection. I can follow directions perfectly. Someone could play a piece of music perfectly, or an athlete could perform perfectly. So you can attain perfection.
But is it sustainable over long periods of time without it being disruptive to your well-being? That's the question. Because over here, I have perfectionism as a common trait associated primarily with people with autism, and it is a cognitive inflexibility and a desire for approval based on black and white thinking, and is one of the leading causes of anxiety and frustration in people with autism. Is that more of an accurate description?
Yes.
Thank you, Kimberly. That face is so good.
Yes, it's true.
All right.
I understand that there's some rigidity involved with perfectionism. I'm not saying there isn't.
Okay.
Need for structure and routine and sameness. And I understand that there is some subjectivity to what might be considered perfect. Like, my idea of the perfect cupcake might be different than your idea of the perfect cupcake. Yes?
Yeah. And I would still go to the sink and pull it out of the sink and eat it, because
those were not cupcakes.
I was like, what is going on here? This is a perfectly good cupcake.
It was not a cupcake. It was a cheddar cheese biscuit, and they were burnt. Don't start.
Okay, whatever it was.
Don't start.
It was amazing.
It was burnt.
So, okay. Slightly tanned, but that's okay.
It was burnt. All right. The thing is, for autistic people, society also punishes us for not being a perfect copy of the neurotypical standard. So part of our thinking pattern becomes, I need to perform perfectly or mask in order to fit in, or just to be able to keep my job, because the slightest slip up and I could be ostracized or fired.
Okay. I get that. And that is one of my my lists of why people with autism have this need for it. And social pressure is definitely, it's in the top 3. Right? But primarily it's that cognitive inflexibility and that rigid thinking is what is the higher motivator for perfectionism, followed by that very high sense and a need for approval. So those are my top 2. Thank you very much, Kimberly. And then your social pressures. You add those three things in, your top three things, and you've got a cocktail for disaster. And I can see this as being one of the main categories that, pushes people to meltdowns and shutdowns. So, would you agree on that one?
Yes. So, yeah. Okay. I understand that perfectionism becomes a coping mechanism uh, to gain social acceptance. Yes, that is true. And that's reinforced every day. And it's like the better you are at something, the more admired and valued you are as a person. So
Which,
you're an excellent educator, right? So the demand to have your skill set in a classroom is high. You are a valuable employee based on your high level of performance.
but there are times I could say, I am, there's a personality clash here. There are so many contributing factors that I know when I can work and build bridges and I also know when I am causing distress by just my presence being there. And I don't take those things personally, right? I look at the holistic picture of everything and I go, am I being, am I a person that is bringing value to this person? Am I contributing to them in an effective and positive manner? Yes or no? Yes, I am. Okay, I'm going to continue. No, I'm causing this person a lot of distress. It to the point where they're shutting down. They're becoming dysregulated. Yeah, I'm not a good fit. Step aside and let somebody that they can relate to and they can build that connection with and do their job. And I don't take it personally, right? So I don't strive for that perfectionism every single day because I also have to take into consideration the other person's needs. Not wants, needs.
Yeah, I think there's some overlap there with humility. So I don't think perfectionism is tied up with narcissism. I don't think you try to be perfect in order to be the best at something all the time. I think it comes, for me, doing a task perfectly, it feels really good and it's satisfying and it's often very joyful. So, are there problems with perfectionistic tendencies? Of course there is. Yes, I'm not going to deny it. The problem is that I have very high expectations of myself. And to be fair, when I was younger, I also had high expectations of everybody else too, because I hadn't built those social understandings yet. Like in grade school, if someone could show me a picture of something they'd drawn, and they'd say, "Oh, I drew this. Isn't this great?" Because you know how kids are. They think everything they do is great. And I'd be like, "No, that's
Absolutely.
terrible." Because objectively, to me, it was terrible. It's not really conducive to making friends. So you learn pretty quickly that people are looking for praise and not for an actual critique, um, which is difficult when you are immediately drawn to details, especially details that you consider to be mistakes. So I have a hard time letting it go. Especially as a kid, I couldn't let it go. And even now as an adult, if I was to walk into a coffee shop, I'm not going to notice or remember the decor in the place. Irrelevant to me. But I will immediately pick up any spelling errors on their menu board. And I don't like it. I don't like it. It feels bad to me. And and then I have this need, this overwhelming need to want to point it out to the person working there. Because surely they must be unaware of that mistake. Otherwise, they would want to fix it, wouldn't they? Like, wouldn't they want to know? And that can create a lot of anxiety because the mistake is bothersome, possibly even painful, depending on your level of self regulation that day. And then there's the social component of whether or not you should say something and how you should say it without sounding condescending or sounding like you know everything. And I mean, I don't know everything, but I know that the word caramel has two A's in it. even if some people like to mispronounce it as caramel. I have tried to learn to not be so intensely bothered by other people's mistakes. If they don't impact me or my work, when someone mispronounces a word or uses the wrong word, I would definitely need to correct them when I was younger. And I still hear it now, every single time. And it still causes me a certain level of discomfort. But I no longer have an overwhelming need to correct that mistake unless it's repeated frequently. Then I just can't take it anymore.
And you have got to that stage by actively and mindfully putting in those coping mechanisms, those strategies in order to, whether it's self talk within your mind and just to say, okay, let it go, and just say, it took a long time. It took a lot of practice. It took a lot of effort. But at the same time, it leads to a lot of frustration and exhaustion at the end of the day.
My body's tense now, just thinking about it.
Just thinking of it. And I think the other aspect of perfectionism is that I find this consistently across the board is that you find it hard to complete a task. A lot of times, people that have such a high level of need for perfectionism very rarely complete a task in its whole. Because they might get from A and they get down to Y, and then, they made a mistake, and now we just can't erase that part of the mistake. We have to go all the way back to A and start over again till we get down to Z.
Yeah, I kind of feel called out, but I'm a completionist. So I get tremendous satisfaction from completing a project. So I will figure out how to fix that mistake. I'll figure it out. There's almost always a way to fix something. Like if you're knitting something and you're on row 100 and you notice a mistake back down in row 5, there are YouTube videos for that. There are clever people out there in the world who say how to drop a stitch all the way down, fix it, and bring it all the way back up again. Like there are fixes for things. And will I fix it? Yes. Will I be able to leave that? No, I can't leave it. I can't. So, yes, but I am a completionist. So I will figure out a way. Someone must know a way. Like the internet is magical.
It is, and fortunately, we have that aspect. But previous to that, there were people who would just leave tasks half done, half complete, because they got to that point where they made that mistake and they don't know how to fix it and they don't know how to move past it. And they become really frustrated about it. Their anxiety level goes up, and then they start to implode on themselves, and you can see them withdrawing and, kind of backing away and wanting to just turtle from the world.
There's always the option to start again.
Yes.
Do it again.
Yep.
One of the worst things is just not having good instructions. So you're following the instructions and you get to step 5 and you figured out that step 3 was wrong, and now you have to start again. And that is extremely dysregulated. There's a lot of swearing involved with these kinds of things.
There is. And I think it's also taking those next steps and slowly implementing those diversions, those microscopic changes that you can build on to kind of expand that resiliency and flexibility in order to help you regulate when things are not, magnified with your perfectionism. So I know you're going like, no, that's not possible, Tess. It is. But when you do, and I'll give you a pure example. You yourself have used this strategy in order to help your son Alex, your eldest son Alex, to be able to pick up a conversation or when he's info dumping, to stop it and then pick it up the next day. Do you know how huge that was? Because you slowly and in very tiny little increments introduce those changes. And those rhythms and those patterns, you change them to build that flexibility, to build that resiliency, to not have to completely info dump on you. And if you stopped him, have to go all the way back to the start and then start that info dump right the way from A. So you did that. You actually put those strategies into place, and those strategies now really benefit him with being able to cope in society. Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's thanks to you.
Okay. I'm not sure that what he was doing was trying to achieve perfection. But the analogy holds for most of that. So I hear what you're saying. I have been trying to, I'm not going to call it resiliency. We're going to have a whole podcast on resiliency. But I have been trying to desensitize myself. Kids and adults are different. You really work on these things when you're spongy and stretchy and all of those things, elastic as children. But as you get older, things are harder. So I do still work on things. So I was trying to desensitize myself to perfection because I do understand that it causes a great deal of anxiety and frustration, like you said. And I started with sugar cookies. And I know it sounds weird.
No.
But so I have made sugar cookies for people for special occasions. There are loads and loads of videos online about how to do some really, really cool techniques with royal icing, airbrushing, and all that stuff. So it's not, I don't just bake a cookie. Decorating it is like a whole process. And it can get very technical and very complicated. And I love complicated things. Because the satisfaction of getting it perfect when it was complicated is very satisfying. Perfecting something that's easy, boring. Perfecting something that's complicated, super exciting. So I make sugar cookies pretty much every week for my son Peter, who's level 3, non-speaking. Alex doesn't like them. Alex is level 1. Because, having both kids like the same food item is just too much to ask for in life. Anyway, so Peter likes American buttercream on his cookies. Sugar and butter whipped up together. Disgusting. Really sweet. He loves it. So it's a lot less labor intensive. It's no fancy airbrushing stuff going on there. But I still need to cut them into perfect circles. There's no rules. You can make sugar cookies any shape you want. But I'm making them in circles. So they gotta be perfect circles. And then I have to pipe the icing on top of them in a perfect little swirl every time. Doesn't have to be that way. If someone said to me, hey, why don't you put it on with a knife? I'm like, heathen, why would I do that? That's terrible. Why would I do that? There's no consistency with that. So I decided to desensitize myself by not making perfect circles, not piping it on in perfect swirls. And I had to sit there and try to convince myself through repetition. So I kept saying over and over to myself, it doesn't have to be perfect. It will still taste the same. He's still going to eat them. No one is judging you. I send them to school. So part of my brain's like, but you send them to school. People can see them. Yes, but no one cares. Literally, no one cares about the cookies that you send in Peter's lunch. So, some days that is easier than others.
Yeah, I can get it. I get that. And it's tough. That rigid cognitive inflexibility is really hard to shift. And I think one of the strategies I often discuss with parents is cognitive behavior therapy, is that mindfulness practice. As an adult with level 1 highly functioning, you're able to do that. But for your level 3 with that rigid thinking or rigid need, takes a lot more work, and you're bang on by saying this needs to start early on in life. And one of the strategies, I know we've discussed this, but it is a platform that you can build on, is teaching them the word no. Right? The meaning of no. Right? No. That's not, that tree is not perfect, but it's beautiful, right? So it just, it takes time. It takes time, Kim. It takes a lot of effort. It takes time, and it, it's one of these areas that, wow, it's a lot of work for both the person and for anybody that's supporting them.
Neither of my kids are perfectionists. And honestly, the way it's having these expectations for yourself. No one cares about the cookies. Nobody, literally nobody cares. But I had to end up changing my expectations, which is hard. And to do that, I ended up having to reframe the whole thing. So I had to have a different goal. So my goal ended up being, how quickly can I get these done and still have them look acceptable? So when the goal is no longer perfection, the goal is now speed.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, they probably still look perfect to anybody who doesn't make cookies.
Yep.
But I got to drop my expectation from 100% to 80%. And there is not as much joy in making something at 80%, but there is less anxiety. So
Okay.
it's a trade-off.
It is. It is. And with less anxiety comes less dysregulation and more energy and fuel at the end of the day. So you are not all tapped out. You're able to reinvest that energy and that lessened anxiety back into yourself in doing other tasks. So thanks, Kim.
But there's also less joy. There's less joy in that. Hey,
Just in one thing, but you can use your perfectionism in areas. And one of the other things I would suggest is, if somebody is really good at something, use that strength in order to create a foundation in which they can really dive into that and really, have that fulfillment there, but also use it to possibly lead to employment down the road. So you can use perfectionism as a strength, but you've got to start setting yourselves healthy boundaries and reduce anxiety.
but neurotypical people are like, hey, we need you to give us 100% at work. And sort of literal thinking, our 100% is like most people's 70%. Right? So you think you've got to do the best possible thing you can do because that's what was required at work. That is a very hard mindset to let go of, and that can lead to burnout pretty fast because
Yeah.
they're not actually expecting your version of 100%. They're imagining their version of 100%, which is like 70%.
Yeah. So that explicit instruction needs to be paired when you're asking somebody with that aspect to please then give it this 100%. Pair it up with the expectations, clear definitions of everything, and it's a win-win situation.
I have one more strategy that I use that maybe people might
Okay.
be interested in. So I decided I like to make things, and there's no specific medium for making things. You can make out of anything, and so I don't have a particular medium that I work in when I'm making something. I just need to make things. So I also took up watercolor painting. I don't have any art background. I have a science background, but there are lots of videos. You can learn how to do anything online. And I can watch people do stuff and get pretty good at it pretty quickly because perfectionism. So I thought I would take up watercolor painting to decrease my need for perfectionism, because although I want the painting to be perfect, and I do have some control over where the paint goes, there is an element of working with watercolor where you have to let go and just let that water go wherever it's going to go. And you're going to get better results in your painting if you relax and just let your brush flow.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a whole element to letting go, specifically with watercolor. And I highly recommend taking up some form of art. And it doesn't matter if you're artistic or not. Like, you could get a book and just doodle in it. It doesn't matter what it is. So I encourage you to just let that art be whatever it's going to be. And even if you hate the outcome, it doesn't matter. You're going to hate some of it. But the exercise of learning to be okay with letting go is very important when coping with anxiety. And perfectionism is all wrapped up in anxiety.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. I think I know art and nature are the most powerful combinations of building that resiliency and acceptance of imperfection. So kudos to you for that. And going out in nature, walking in nature is actually very grounding, and just being looking at how nature is actually imperfect in its perfection, and just pointing out things, just having a conversation. Really, it does. You may not think you're making such an impact, but you are. So, kudos for your artwork, because I'm a very, very happy recipient of one of your creations.
I have read that walking in nature reduces anxiety. And apparently that's a thing a lot of people have. Walking in nature does not reduce my anxiety. It creates anxiety for me. I don't like bugs at
Well,
all.
you have to find the appropriate nature walk. I
Ticks. There are ticks. I don't want Lyme disease. I don't want to go.
Okay, well, you can go to a nice greenhouse where it's warm. I know you love the heat.
Yeah, and I don't like being outside much. I don't the sun hurts. The wind hurts. If it's too cold, that hurts. It's just weather is bad generally. I like to be home.
Yeah.
So I do understand that walking in nature, it's not like I don't like nature, I just like it from my window. So it's I love the feel of bark on a tree. That is yes. But it's the other things surrounding the nature that I just don't like. Also, I don't plants die. I can't somehow manage to keep plants.
That's okay. We'll build that. We'll build those skills for you. Slowly, right? With Peter's help, we will build those skills.
Yeah, Peter can grow anything. He touches it, he's like magic.
Yeah, there you go. So, because he loves it. He loves everything about it. So,
So I
but
will
this
put a
is,
link to our episode on anxiety at the end, as I do.
yeah, because these are very interconnected. And strategies that you use in anxiety do help in overcoming, you know, your resiliency to being flexible, right? And it takes one step at a time, like you did, right, with the cookies. So, and you can start using those steps into other aspects, and you start to build your toolbox of flexibility, which I love.
Hey, it's
So, thank
painful.
you.
Hey,
I know
don't get me wrong. It is a painful process.
it is, but that pain lessens over time. The more acceptance, the less anxiety, and the more energy you have at the end of the day, the less painful it gets. So, hey, thank you. But all of this kind of, we try and connect our episodes. Um, and as we're approaching the time of year of fall and Halloween, I was thinking we should have a conversation about that, because everything about perfect and everything about Halloween are two opposite directions over here. Halloween is a kind of storm in a teacup. So I think we should discuss Halloween and how amazing or not amazing the whole experience can be.
Yeah, I know there are a lot of parents who struggle with Halloween and their kids, so that's a good topic. We'll talk about that.
Okay. Well, until the next time, have a great day.
We'll see you then. Thanks for tuning in. If you know someone who might find this episode helpful, feel free to share. Also, check out our website and socials linked in the description.